Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome. This July 5th, 2022 meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Buck.
Here.
Councilors Rapp.
Here.
Mans. Here. Mboot.
Here.
Wenlin.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
And Burdick.
Here.
Okay, now everyone, will you please stand and join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So July is the month where we celebrate Parks and Recreation, Parks and Recreation Proclamation. Our Parks Department is fundamental to our community, from the programming that brings us all together to open spaces and nature. Our parks are an integral part of our city life and all that we enjoy in Lake Oswego. We thank our many team members in the Parks Department, from the event staff to the great parks maintenance workers who, under the leadership of Director Anderholm, create such an incredible environment for us all to enjoy. And we thank our residents who continually support our parks through their participation and the support of Parks Bonds. The full proclamation for Parks Month, along with all of our proclamations, are posted on the website for those who are interested. And I want to give a special thank you to our Parks team, especially for the great job they did yesterday at the 4th of July celebration. So we're going to start with public comment. We have a full agenda tonight of public hearings, study sessions. The public comment is for general comments for items that are not on the agenda. So if you're here to testify at one of the hearings or speak on the pickleball, we have the forms on the table when you come in, the blue forms, and you fill those out if you're here to speak on, again, the hearings or pickleball, and you give that form to Ms. Linder. But right now, if anyone is here to speak on just any general topic, we have white forms in the back to fill out. So if you want to speak on something that's not on the agenda, a white form. But I'm going to ask Mr. Sean Donahue to come up. Mr. Donahue, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Sit down. You'll have 3 minutes. There's going to be little indicator lights there that's going to
I see it. Thank
tell you
you.
how the time's tracking.
This is not the first and most probably not the last time that suggested changes to the city's noise ordinance have been proposed in residential zones. Now, as structured, the city code, as I'm sure you all are well aware, includes a general prohibition against loud or disturbing noises, and a separate section addresses certain specified prohibited noises in a bit more narrow detail. And the legislative history behind both of these sections make clear that the city's intent is to provide for a quiet zone between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. in residential zones. Now, one of the noteworthy city specific exceptions relates to construction activities, and it excludes construction between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. during the week, with later start times during the weekend. And the purpose of this section is to expand, to a certain extent, the quiet zone for construction activities in residential zones where those activities are allowed. Currently, however, the city code does not address landscaping activities, which can be as loud and as unwelcome as construction. And I'm sure all of us can think back and are well aware of mowers and blowers and chainsaws going on the weekend and in the evening, what by neighbors and landscapers, and what specifically brought me before you are these type of activities in Oswego Lake Country Club, which is a 92-acre parcel in the heart of the city. Now, the club is zoned R10, and it holds a conditional use permit for golf. And the club is surrounded by single-family homes that are either R10 or R15. And as a conditional use holder, the city has to comply, has to use its property so that it's compatible with its neighbors. Well, it doesn't. Before 6 o'clock in the morning, it has mowers and blowers going, and I have brought this to the attention of the city, and particularly Bill Youngblood, who has assured me that the city complies with the noise ordinance at the municipal course and at George Rogers Park. And I'm sure if they were running blowers and mowers at 5:45 at George Rogers Park, there'd be a lot more people here this afternoon. But in any event, we tried mediation with the help of the city to get the club to limit its activity to comply with the code. Well, it didn't, and we have proposed some language that would make clear that the city and the club, that all landscape activities are to be conducted during specific times, excluding Sundays. That's all the comments that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Yep. Okay, is there anyone else here to provide general public comment? Okay. We're going to move into our first public hearing. We have a series of annexations. Mr. Espy is joining us remotely, and we'll have Mr. Luce here in a second go through the hearing procedures. What we're going to do is Mr. Espy is going to present, hi, Mr. Espy, on all of the, he's going to give a report on all of the annexations, and then we'll conduct the hearing separately thereafter. So, Mr. Luce, will you please review the hearing procedures for us?
Yes, Your Honor. These rules apply to items 6.1 through 6.4, which are all quasi-judicial hearings for annexation. These are land use requests involving the application of the criteria and standards listed in the staff report, which is available from staff or at the table in the back of the room. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria as listed in the staff report or such other criteria contained within the Lake Oswego Comp Plan and land use regulations which you believe apply to this decision. Please identify to the council the criteria or standards you are addressing so the council may consider your testimony in relation to the applicable criteria or standards. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the City Council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearings will be conducted as follows. There will be a presentation by staff. For each hearing, testimony by the applicant of up to 20 minutes. Individuals will be allowed up to 5 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations, government agencies, homeowners associations will be allowed up to 10 minutes, and then will be a 5-minute rebuttal. Prior to closing the public hearing, a party who testified before the council may request an opportunity to present additional evidence. At this point, I'll ask the council to please declare if they have any ex parte contacts, including a site visit, bias, or any financial conflict of interest.
No.
Turn it back to you then, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Luce. All right, with that, Mr. Espy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Buck, members of the council, we have before us this evening 4 properties being considered for annexation. These properties are located at 6059 Seville Avenue, 871 Country Club Road, 5144 Centerwood Street, and 920 Atwater Road. 6059 Seville Avenue is located in the Rosewood neighborhood. It's located in the Lake Forest neighborhood, and it's on the north side of Seville Avenue. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I'm sorry. The property is under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and is zoned low-density residential. It's designated R7.5 on the City of Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan and will be designated R7.5 upon annexation. Sanitary sewer can be made available from an existing 8-inch main in the which currently terminates with a manhole in Mellon Avenue about 325 feet south of the site. And water is available from a 6-inch Lake Grove Water District line in Mellon Avenue and Seville Avenue along the site frontages. The site frontage, this property will remain in Lake Grove Water District and will continue to be a Lake Grove Water District customer. 871 Country Club Road is located on the north side of Country Club Road in the Forest Highlands neighborhood. This property is currently under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and will be zoned and is zoned low-density residential R20 and is designated R5 in the city's comprehensive plan and will be designated R5 upon annexation. The north part of the property is designated as a resource protection area on the comprehensive plan map and will also have or carry the resource protection designation upon annexation as well. Property owner was notified about the option to contest the RP district designation on May 25th of this year. They have not formally contested the designation and they have not submitted an application for a sensitive lands map correction, and they wish to have the annexation proceed at this time. Sewer is available from a City of Lake Oswego 8-inch collection line on the north side of Country Club Road with a lateral which was constructed as a part of the city's sewer extension program. And water is also available from a city 10-inch water main in Country Club Road along the site frontage. 5144 Centerwood Street is located on the south side of Centerwood Street at its intersection with Arrowwood Avenue in the Rosewood neighborhood. The subject property is currently under Clackamas County's jurisdiction and is zoned low-density residential. It's designated R10, low-density residential on the City of Lake Oswego's comprehensive plan and will be zoned R10 upon annexation. Sewer can be made available from an existing 8-inch public sanitary sewer main that currently terminates with a manhole at the intersection of Centerwood Street and Arrowwood Avenue. And this is, I bring this up real quickly. This is a situation where the property owner's septic system has failed, resulting in a sanitary condition, and we issued an irrevocable consent to annex so that they are allowed to connect prior to the annexation with the guarantee that they would fill out an application, which they did, and annex the property. Water is available from a 6-inch River Grove Water District line in Centerwood Street. This property is in the River Grove Water District, and they will remain a River Grove Water District customer upon annexation. 920 Atwater Road is located on the north side of Atwater Road in the Forest Highlands neighborhood. This property is under Clackamas County's jurisdiction, zoned low-density residential R20, and is designated R15 on the comprehensive plan, and will be zoned R15 upon annexation. The sewer is located from an 8-inch collection line in Atwater Road, approximately 110 feet east of the site. Water is available from a city 8-inch water main in Atwater Road along the street frontage, and a new 6-inch public main extension will be required to be constructed in Atwater Road with property development. Staff finds that the proposed annexation meets the state statutes and Metro Code requirements. Public facilities and services can be provided in a timely and orderly and efficient manner. Staff finds that the annexation can be approved. I am open for any questions that you might have at this point.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Espy. Does anyone have any questions? Councilor Mans, do you have a question? No? Oh. Anyone? Okay. Oh, yeah. Very much. Okay, then we're going to start the public hearing on Ordinance 2889, which is the 6059 Seville property. And I'll ask, so is the applicant here to present? Yes, okay, please, Mr. Brockman. This is 6059 Seville. Good evening. You have up to 20 minutes.
Good evening, councilors. I appreciate you considering this annexation. I'm also a real estate broker, and I sold this property to the current owner about 3 years ago, and they have completely remodeled the house that's right on Seville Avenue, and they would like to annex because they would like to ultimately partition the property for 2 additional lots or 1 additional lot. That decision's not etched in stone yet in their mind, but That's what's motivating the annexation. There's nothing wrong with their current septic situation, but they certainly plan on staying in the house since they've remodeled it very, very nicely. So we've done, extensive research in both cost and what it would take to accomplish their goals. So it's a very, very well thought through on their part, and they hope that you would approve this annexation.
That's great. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Brockman? Okay, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Okay. Let me see here if I have anyone else to testify on this particular one.
Like,
Let's see, hold on. No. Okay, is there anyone who would like to testify on ordinance 2889-6059 Seville? Okay, then I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Like to move to enact ordinance 2889.
I'll
Second.
Okay, second by Councilor Vance. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Councilor Mbu?
Aye.
He said, okay, he said aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Now we'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2895, which is for 871 Country Club Road. I'll ask if the applicant is here. Oh, someone stood up in the back. I thought they were the applicant. So there's no applicant. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to testify on ordinance 2895? Okay. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve
Move
this
to
ordinance.
enact ordinance 2895.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Is Councilor Mbupo? Okay, and any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Now open the public hearing on ordinance 2896, which is for 5144 Centerwood Street. I'll ask if the applicant is here. Yes, please. Would you like to? Good evening.
Thank you.
Just give us your name, please, for the record.
My name is Jim Strovink, Strovink, and my wife and I reside at 5144
Welcome.
Centerwood. So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for entertaining my application for annexation. I appreciate it. Last March, my property suffered a great loss with the loss of my septic tank. Unfortunately, we've been limping along here through the process, but first and foremost, I'd like to single out Mr. Espy and his staff, Ed Marchand, engineering, Nancy Sly, and I don't want to leave anybody else. Luke Lappin is my civil engineer that's been working with this very gracious team that you have here, and you should be very proud of them because they've been very accommodating, very professional, and I'm impressed, and they've been a big help. As I said, this started last March, and if you've ever gone without bathroom facilities or a nice hot shower for any length of time, it's difficult. So I appreciate all the efforts that they've done and put into this, trying to get it expedited for me, but it's still an exorbitant amount of time. I guess that would be the only constructive criticism that I might provide to you, is that it'd be nice if people such as me that have resided in Lake Oswego since the 70s. My house was constructed in 1969, and it was just a matter of time before that it ages out, I guess is the expression that's used. So it has, but these folks have rallied to the cause, but I'm still looking at expenses over, right now it's about $140,000. Now, I'm 75 this month, and for me and my wife to absorb something like that extravagant expense is difficult. But we're going to do it because we love Lake Oswego, and we're going to make it work somehow. If you were some way that you could remedy, help people out with some loans, that just nothing out there. maybe even some tax incentive or relief to help people out here to get through at least the initial phase of that transition. But overall, I've been very pleased with the city, and I thank you very much. And I live in Lake Oswego. I love it. I'm going to stay.
Thank you, Mr. Strobing. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Strobing? No. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Okay, and we do have a couple folks who would like to testify on this ordinance. Mr. Childress, Craig Childress. Oh, and well, Terry, you come as well. You can side by side here. Dynamic duo here.
Team effort.
We'll let Terry go first.
Okay.
Hi, thank you all so much for this time to speak to you. I'm Terry Childress. I am a neighbor to Jim and Janice Strovink, and they are the loveliest neighbors you could ever hope for. I want to express my appreciation to each of you. I'm sure you get to listen to lots of complaints in this job. So for all that you do, we appreciate you and what you do for our community. We're also grateful to the LO Engineering Office and the county offices related to sewer hookup that we've spoken to and that the Strovinks have worked with. All have been kind, respectful, and helpful, and we are grateful for that. So I want to bring you up to date with some facts we have learned, new to us, because who knew? 1968, many homes in the Rosewood neighborhood were built, and each was built with a septic tank, thanks to state, county, and city approval. But then in 1984, the state said any failed septic tanks must hook up to a sewer if you're within 300 feet. February 2022, this year, Clackamas County said if you dig up any part of the street, you cannot just repave the trench, you have to repave curb to curb. So here we are. And I'm fully aware that each of you are the face and hands and ears and eyes of many decisions that have been made by other public officials. But you get to be the one at this time. So I appreciate that oftentimes rules and pandemics have unintended consequences. So now let's focus on our sweet neighbors, Jim and Janice. So in late 2015, we bought our house across the street from them, our one-level house, so we could age in place. But a couple months or few weeks after we moved in, there was a letter sent to us about another neighbor that was hooking up to sewer. And the letter stated that she spent $60,000 to hook up, and they anticipated our increase to be 3% annually. So if we fast forward, if we take that $60,000 in the end of 2015 and put it in today's dollars, 3%, that would be about $71,000. So in March, Jim notifies us that their septic has failed and that the bid is $168,000. Now, working in a financial advisor's office, the state of Oregon tells us we are mandatory reporters of elder abuse. And if a client called our office and told us this story, the red flags would be flying, because we were just like, this cannot be. That an expected expense of $71,000 and now it's $168,000. You solely over 70 on a fixed income are solely responsible for repaving a street that's full of potholes. And you're solely responsible for putting the sewer pipe down the road. Now we understand there's a sewer zone of benefit, which oxymoron, but that applies to the neighbor, and that we, any of us who hook in later, will owe him a portion of those funds. But it's still, the initial output is all his, $168,000. What's the bell curve of people who could write that check and not give a rip? I don't know very many that could. Sorry, I got sidetracked. The impact of this expense on our older fixed income neighbors and our young family that are next door to us that don't have the equity, don't have the income. If their septic fails, what are they to do? So we had a meeting Sunday afternoon with all our neighbors to discuss the impact of this annexation. And they were kind and amenable to learning more from our engineers and others to help us face this financial hurdle. But much like we share in our schools, whether we have children or not, we aspire to a government that is for the people, by the people. So my big ask is, how can we work together to stop this exorbitant assessment on just a few homeowners? There must be a reasonable solution, and I'm begging you to put yourself in the Strovink's shoes and use your resources to make this ongoing septic sewer hookup fair and affordable for all of us who know the day is coming. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Childress.
Well, hi, I'm Terry's husband, Craig Childers, and I do want to thank you for your time and this opportunity to speak to you today. And I also want to thank you, like everybody said, the exceptional work of this council and the mayor and our state and county and city employees. Everybody has just done an awesome job of helping us and being great to put things forward. And I too am sad to say that I often know that your work goes unappreciated, but we really want to say thank you for the volunteer work that you do and all that you do for our city and for those of us who live here. Terry and I have lived here since 1995. We've had 3 kids in the Lake Oswego School District. We've owned homes here, on the home there on 5063, and we've been very active in the Lake Oswego community. Terry and I have both been presidents of the Rotary Club. We both chaired the Lobster Feed Committee. We're active in our church. Terry's chaired the Hunger Fighters Board. We love Lake Oswego, and you know, all our family's back in Texas, but we wouldn't think of moving there in a heartbeat. We like it here. You know, as I understand all of this, the rules and stuff, I won't repeat those because I know you guys know and are aware of those. But, you know, the systems that we have in place and the rules and laws are here to help us build a community together and share those costs for, whether it be for schools or roads or the management of the city, sewer hookups, so forth and so on. However, while these laws and rules make sense in themselves, like any system, they can have unintended consequences, causing an unfair burden on individuals in our community. And like Terry said, as financial planners, if we see abuse, especially elder abuse, we're mandatory reporters. And even though I'm not calling that what this is, it just feels like it has a similarity to it. And, you know, we as citizens want to step up and never ask the individual to bear the burden of the cost of building infrastructure on their own dime, so to speak. We should all participate in that. So in our neighborhood meeting we had this past Sunday, we had the majority of our neighbors on the balance of Centerwood Street down to Tualatin meet with us, and they were very receptive. We were encouraged about their receptiveness to explore the benefits of forming a local improvement district to address the aging septic systems in our street, and working with the city toward the prospect of connecting to the sewer and annexation. So that was very, very encouraging, and we're excited about that. So I'm asking you as our city councilors, as our mayor, our city employees for help in these ways. If you would meet with us at future meetings, if you would assist us with information. We don't know these things, we're just learning, but we'd like to learn how to build or set up a local improvement district, how to access money through the Bancroft bond process, how to work with the county to get variances on paving from curb to curb, and even the possibility of, I understand there's public health funding, which I have no clue how that works or what that is, but I'm sure some of you guys do know. So we are just humbly asking for you guys to step up with us. And I think we've got a great opportunity here to help the city that wants to do some annexation to get things in better shape for the city and for us who've got future problems with our sewage system and some other infrastructure in our neighborhood. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, well, hold on, I think, one second. Do you have a question? Councilor Raffa's question. Oh, for Mr. Strovick. Oh, well, a little bit. Is it? Well,
I can speak to them in
okay, you have a question for her? She was more like.
So how many
I mean, I'm very sympathetic to this. So, because one of our council goals is obviously to help our community members age in place and remain community members for as long as they can, and then generationally, people continue to live here. How many, if I could ask, if you know, how many bids were received for this work?
Jim, you can do it, but it's 8, right?
Civil engineer Luke Lappin did a commendable job, and he contacted over 8 contractors. And most of the problem is that this is a small project in comparison to some of the other major industrial lays that they have going.
Sure.
But we did narrow it down to at least 4 competitive bids of people that were willing to accept it. It's going to take about a week with the same start to finish on that project, running the highway as well. But we got 4, and that the bid that it looks the most competitive right now, it's hard to tell because we don't know if we're going to have to get the variance on that petroleum product that's going down and paving the street. But it's about 100, and right now, looking at the engineering fees, the construction fees that are all going in, it's well over 140,000.
So I would just reiterate to us, if the city staff, there's anything that we could look into to do. I don't know if there is, but if we can.
How about if you don't mind, let's hold that, we're gonna come back to that, but let's do the annexation first, because you're on a policy question.
Yeah.
And
Thank you both.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you again, yes.
Okay. It's a good topic.
Yeah.
It's just, okay.
Thank
Is
you.
there anyone else who would like to testify regarding ordinance 2896? No. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing.
Move to enact ordinance 2896.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? No. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes 7-0. All right, now we will open the final public hearing on ordinance 2897 pertaining to 920 Atwater. Is the applicant here? Or is there, okay, no applicant. Is there anyone here who would like to testify regarding this ordinance? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move to enact ordinance 2897.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Did Councilor move? Any opposed?
Aye.
Yep, thank you, Councilor. Okay, motion passes 7-0.
So, Your Honor, before you leave these, and so that the folks who've come on the annexations don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting, I do think we can follow up on 2 things. First, we can contact the county and just find out what their policy is and whether or not there's an option.
Right.
Because they certainly didn't take care of the road.
I think
I mean,
this
it
is-
happened.
And I do think that I'm very reluctant to spend city funds on a county road that has obviously not been maintained by the county. And I wouldn't recommend that you take jurisdictional responsibility without a financial transfer from the county. The second thing we can follow up on is we can meet with the Childresses and find out sort of what they are thinking in terms of, obviously, if there are several neighbors who want to come in and hook up at the same time, it'll be more cost effective for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was going with my comment was, ways that we can help may not be financial, but they could be resource oriented. So I think this is a great way for us to, obviously we can't do this for everybody, but I think this is a certain situation that bears our ability to come in and do whatever we can. And look, if we're not able to do anything, call me up, I'll pour some asphalt with you and we'll get it done ourselves, just you and I, so. There you go.
And we welcome you to, and we
Although
welcome
Martha
you
won't let
to.
me handle a
That's right,
chainsaw, so.
remember. Maybe the street paver. Okay. All right.
And we welcome all of you to Lake Oswego, that you're being, we're glad that you asked to come in, and we welcome you with open arms. So,
That's right.
sorry the price tag is a little high, but it is Lake Oswego, so.
Well, they're not paying us.
I know.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, we are now going to move to item 6.5, which is Resolution 22-20, which is a budget amendment, supplemental budget, adopting a supplemental budget. We are going to start with a review of the hearing and procedures by Mr. Luce.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a legislative public hearing, so any member of the audience that wishes to speak will have 5 minutes to do so, 10 minutes for members of any homeowners association or neighborhood group.
Wonderful, okay. Thank you, and we have our Finance Director, Mr. Cross, with us. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. This is one of our smaller budget supplements, but it's a lot of money for this one small fund. It's basically rolling over the appropriations from the last biennium for the art purchases related to City Hall. And then another art piece, Moon over Lake Oswego, that got damaged on Cruiseway. We need to transfer about $30,000 to replace one stone. And that's what the budget supplement is.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the supplemental budget for Director Cross? Okay. We're going to open the public hearing on this matter. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this supplemental budget? Okay. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. We'll entertain a motion to approve the supplemental budget.
To adopt resolution 22-20.
Second.
Council verdict. All right, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Council, okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Director Cross. Okay. Now we're going to move to council business. If anyone is here to speak on the pickleball item and has not done so already, please fill out a blue form in the back on the table and deliver it to Ms. Leonard, where we have some forms already. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so I know many of you are here to talk about the pickleball courts at George Rogers Park, and just a note before we begin, we are all Lake Oswegans, but there are times, if we can believe it or not, while we do not all agree, and we relish coming together as residents united, but sometimes we're working towards that unity, and that's what we're here to do tonight. Like good neighbors, we resolve our disputes respectfully with open ears and empathy, no matter how strong our opinions may be. So I just thank everyone in advance for being here tonight and for being those good neighbors when you deliver your comments, because you are all valued members of the community, and we're all really glad that you're here. Okay, so Mr. Luce is we want to have public comment. We want to hear from folks. We have received a lot of comments in advance of the meeting, written comments that folks emailed in, and those have been posted to the website. So even if you don't get to speak tonight, your presence here makes a difference. And those who sent in their comments, we read all of those in advance, and it's very, very helpful, and those become part of the record. So we have 40 minutes allocated. We're going to have 10 folks who, I hate dividing people, but we have folks who are kind of on one side of the issue and the folks who are on the other. And we have a recommendation from our Parks Board. So we have the folks who are in favor of that recommendation from the Parks Board, and we have the folks who are not in favor of the recommendation from the Parks Board. I'm just going to choose folks at random. And when you come up, you'll have 2 minutes. And so there's lots of folks who want to speak. So just please be respectful of the timer so I don't have to interrupt you. And then the council will have its discussion. So is it, Mr. Luce, did I miss anything? Okay, very good. All right, so we're going to start, though, with a staff report by Director Anderholm and by Sarah Ellison, who is the chair of the Parks Board. So Director Anderholm, Ms. Ellison, good evening. Good to see you both. Please have a seat.
Good afternoon. Ivan Anderholm, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm going to basically go through a little bit of the background of the pickleball courts at George Rogers Park, and then Sarah will speak to the discussion and the process that the Parks Board went through in coming up with a recommendation. I want to note in your council report, which from Parks and Recreation is rather long, I think 85 pages, probably our longest since I've been here. that you have a number of different documents in there, including a sound report, a noise report that we had done down at the courts. The history of the courts. In 2015, the department was approached by a group of citizens that were playing pickleball, and they were playing at a local HOA tennis court. And then they found that the number of people that were playing was too big for their neighborhood tennis court. So they approached the department about putting some temporary lines on some court in Lake Oswego. When they approached us, we looked at actually three areas where we have tennis courts: Westlake Park, George Rogers Park, and then the South Shore Water Tower. We looked at those courts from a standpoint of what organized activities were taking place and the number of folks that were playing on those courts, and allowed the group to go to George Rogers Park and put down temporary, and the first time they did it, they put down temporary tape on the courts, and then they brought out basically portable nets. Later in 2015, we were approached on whether we would allow actual secondary lines to be painted. So the first lines were painted, I believe, in August of 2015 on the courts at George Rogers. At that time, the pickleball organization was starting to pick up some momentum. They asked if they could put a job box down at the courts where they could store their temporary nets. They were still using a temporary net system. And then organized play. That progressed, and in 2018, I believe it was 2018, with the number of people that were playing pickleball and the relatively small input that we got from anybody else, we worked with that group, and then the city endured in resurfacing the courts, which needed to be done. And at that point, decided to paint permanent pickleball courts, put standards in. Currently, there are 6 pickleball courts on what used to be 2 tennis courts. From that time, especially going into the pandemic, end of 2018 into 2019, and then into 2020, we saw an enormous uptick of use of the pickleball courts. And with that use came increased sound from the use of those courts, both the hitting of the ball and the social nature of the game, which is a little bit different than tennis in that people high five and cheer for each other, and there's not the etiquette. Councilor Raff, I can see you looking at me. But anyway, there have been a number of people there, and as the pandemic hit, the local pickleball club, the Lake Oswego Pickleball Club, had approached us, and we were looking at ways that we could meet the requirements for contact tracing, for social distancing, all those different things that we were dealing with when COVID hit. And one way that we found was to work with the local pickleball club and use a program called Playtime Scheduler that is intended to be a meetup program. It's where you can meet up people that are interested in the same thing at the same ability level as you, and then you can pick a time and show up. The pickleball club actually maintained the scheduling, posted regulations, COVID regulations for us, and then required sign-in through Playtime Scheduler that gave us contact tracing information. Fast forward into late 2020 when we started to see an explosion of use in through 2021, and we still had huge use. And I think that all the councilors are aware there was a announcement by Playtime Scheduler that of municipal courts, these courts were the second most used in the United States, as in people doing the meetup. So where we're at now with the courts is we have 6 courts. We've engaged a couple of different times with the neighborhood association as well as the pickleball club. Primarily, the complaints have been around the noise that the courts create. There's also been some concern about the parking as well as some of the safety conditions around the parking. Myself, the police chief, city manager, traffic engineer met with the leadership of the Old Town Neighborhood Association. We walked the neighborhood. I believe in all cases, we came up with different things to do. I know there's new signage around corners, blank corners. I know that the police have continued to enforce parking violations in the area. And then because of the noise that we heard, we endeavored on looking at and researching ways that we could mitigate that within the park. Where it stands, we hired an outside firm to do a noise study, and in that noise study, we chose places in front of 6 of the residents directly across Ladd Street from the courts, as well as the back of their residences in the public alley. Through that, we did a recording with basically our initial noise mitigation, which was a one piece of sound barrier that was attached above the concrete wall at the north end of the courts. And then subsequently, in working with the manufacturer of that, we purchased and basically put an envelope around the courts per the recommendation. The sound report itself, and you have it in there, does indicate that there was a small sound reduction, and indicated in the conclusions that it was beneficial, but it was also a detriment due to the south wall being installed and the fact that it was reflecting sound back towards the neighborhood. So we've taken that recommendation seriously. We've removed that south wall. And in the meantime, as we were looking at these mitigation for the sound, we also looked at how we may be able to regulate the number of people that were attending. Prior to this year, Playtime Scheduler was essentially with addition of a few parks and recreation programs, was really the only way that we regulated the use. This spring, early spring, we entered into negotiations and put out an RFP for both Lake Oswego Pickleball Club and then the larger area pickleball club. Both submitted proposals for organized play, and we ended up basically working with Lake Oswego Pickleball Club to create reserve times at the court, so that when their club came down, that there would be specific times that their club would be coming down. And then we have park and rec programs. We also have open play, which is still scheduled through Playtime Scheduler. And then based on our conversations and what we heard during some of the conversations with our Parks Board, we have sat down with the Neighborhood Association again, and we proposed that we would reserve time where there wouldn't be play. And so in the schedule that's in your packet, you'll notice that there are times that say Old Town Neighborhood Association, OTNA, and those are times that we've reserved where we don't allow play, and quite honestly, we would allow the neighborhood, if they wanted to go do something other than play pickleball, do that there. So that is where we are at the pickleball courts, and then obviously I will be here to answer any technical questions about mitigation or other steps the department's had, and then I'll turn it over to Sarah to speak about the process that the Parks Board went through and their recommendation.
Thank you, Ivan. I'm Sarah Ellison. I'm one of the Parks. So in March, the Parks Board received a request from City Council to consider the request from the Old Town Neighborhood Association to shut down the courts for pickleball. So we got that on our March agenda. We had a pickleball study session in March. We had the opportunity to hear from community members, both pickleball players and neighborhood community members. We also heard from staff on mitigation steps that they were at that point taking to mitigate noise. We I think at that time we were informed that you were going to be doing an acoustical engineering study. So in May, we received an update from staff. It was on our agenda again in May. We had another opportunity to hear from community members on the issue, and we were awaiting at that point the engineer's measurements on impacts by the acoustic fence that was installed. So then it was on our agenda again in June, and we had the opportunity to speak with the acoustical engineer who was able to answer our questions regarding the sound report. They took measurements before and after the fencing was installed. We heard again from community members, and the board had a discussion on the question of whether or not the courts should be closed to pickleball. There was an initial motion to have the courts remain open with reduced hours and other mitigating steps. That motion failed 2-4, and then we had another motion that the courts be closed for 6 months, and that motion passed 4-3. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Well, Ms. Ellison, I just want to thank you and the other Parks Board members for, working through this issue with the community. It's very, difficult when divided issue like this, and obviously on the Parks Board, even that's, was not a clear-cut issue, obviously. And we thank you as a neighbor for, even being here tonight and helping us with this process.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderholm, could you, do you have any idea of what the, we know a little bit about the sound barriers and the impacts those have had, but what have the scheduling, the hours, the new hours and whatnot, what impact has that had on the amount of play on the courts? Is there a way to quantify that?
Based on the information that we collect, which is through Playtime Scheduler as well as through our organized programs, which are kind of the things that we can do, and then also LO Pickleball Club for their reserve time. We've seen between April 1st and June 30th of this year compared to last year, it's reduced. And again, I'm not going to say that it's just the scheduling. I have to qualify this that due to the wetter weather, you're not going to see as many people coming out on days. But the numbers right now show about 1/3 of the actual people showing up to the courts that we saw a year ago. So in 2021, that same time period, we saw about 2/3 more people. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Mance.
First of all, thank you, Ms. Ellis, for all of your work on this. I know it's been an interesting voyage for the Parks Department. I appreciate all of the volunteerism and time that went into that. My question is directed to Director Anderholm. In much of the correspondence that we received from citizens who play pickleball, there was a comment about going to West Lynn, for example, or other municipalities because they were able to add more pickleball courts, et cetera, et cetera. Can you briefly explain why we're unable to add additional pickleball courts immediately?
Yes,
Thank you.
I will attempt to. In the Lake Oswego park system, I already mentioned the number of tennis courts that we have, so active courts that we have. There are 2 tennis courts at West Lake. There's 1 tennis court on top of the water tower at South Shore, and then there were the 2 tennis courts, now 6 pickleball courts at George Rogers. Other properties that we have within our park system that have adequate parking are fully developed. We don't have a land bank that would allow us to build additional pickleball courts, and it's not just the space for the courts, it's a space for people to park so that they can come to the courts. That being said, obviously there are properties on the south side of town that at some point, if we get the land use figured out on the Lusher area master plan, there may be some availability for additional courts. But right now, and we did ask that question and talked with the Parks Board about it. It wasn't just the department, but the Parks Board collectively, we really came up with no immediate answer of what we could do.
Great, that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions right now? Councilwoman?
As far as other options, you said Lusher Farm might be a possibility, and people throw that out as open land. Can you go through the process a little bit of what it would take to, where we're at in the process of Lusher Farm being a possibility? I mean, it's, and for those who are not in government work, it takes a long time for land use to be changed. And so just to get the expectation kind of in there, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
So Lusher Farm, as we know it, is, with the exception of those areas like Azalea Field that are already developed there within the city, the future Receipt Park, which is being developed now or is about to be developed, the entire rest of the park is in exclusive farm use zoning in Clackamas County. In that zone, park uses are not permitted and park use development is not permitted. The city has over the last 15 to 18 years made numerous attempts to rectify that problem, in that the property was purchased for park use for the community. We've gone to Metro on 3 separate occasions and withdrew 2 applications, and 1 application was denied to bring the property into the urban growth boundary. The latest time that we did that was in 2019, I believe. And at that point, we were told by Metro that to bring it into the UGB, we needed to exhaust all possible opportunities to develop park-like amenities at Lusher through Clackamas County. That led to a meeting with Clackamas County and a reinterpretation of the EFU code that allowed for us to basically submit for a master plan approval through the Clackamas County. We actually have initiated that process. We've had 1 meeting with Clackamas County. We're in the process of developing the scope of that process. It's not a defined process in the county. They don't have a defined park master planning process, so we're helping define that. But that's where we're at. We're at the beginning stages of developing the scope for that process, and then we will be submitting the existing master plan as our master plan for adoption. Essentially what that is with the county is it's a comprehensive plan amendment. That's the way that they will be processing that. Right now we're looking at realistically 8 months to 10 months to get through that process.
Which will in turn have you do 4 more processes that will probably take as much?
Yes, because what will happen is the master plan will be approved, their comprehensive plan will be adopted, and then any development that we do will trigger a conditional use process with the county where they will go through just like we would. And there's another process that we would need to go through that would take into account traffic impacts, any other type of impact on the county to implement.
So it wouldn't, this is not a 12-month process, it's probably 24 to 36-month process?
In order to do development and do the development that is directly related to recreation amenities, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does that apply to all we know think about as Lusher? Obviously, there's already athletic use and other uses on the property. Can you kind of explain
It applies specifically to those activities that are recreation in nature. So that would be everything from soft surface trails to athletic fields to courts.
But geographically,
Yeah.
you know, some of the property is already being used
Yes,
for recreation.
yes, it
And that's
is.
outside the,
Yes, we're currently in violation for some of the recreational uses on Lesher Farm.
oh, good reminder. Yes,
Yeah, Hizalia is in the city limits and in the UGB
right.
specifically, yes.
Sometimes when we think of Lusher, we think of the whole, you know,
Yes.
Lusher ecosystem. It's many components to it, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Does anyone else have any questions right now? Director Anderholm? Councilor Boop, do you have any questions right now? No, okay. Okay, thank you both very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we want to hear from you folks. I'm going to call you up, starting with the folks who are in favor of the recommendation from the Parks Board, two at a time, and then I'll let you know who's on deck. So I've just shuffled the stack here. So the first two, the first person is, and if I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry in advance, Taisa Sobolou, and Mark Woman. Please come on down. Taisa? Taisa? T-A-I-S-S-I, are you here? Do you exist? You don't exist. Okay. And Mark and Kara Gapan. Kara, please come on down. And then on deck, Ali Afghan and Valentina Sobulu, same last name as first. Maybe you also left. Okay, please, you two. Mr. Woolman, go first.
Testing, yep.
You got 2 minutes, we got a little time remaining. Thank you. Glad
My
you're
name's
here.
Mark Woolman, and I am a resident of Old Town, and I'm also the president of the Lake Oswego Pickleball Club. And right now, I would just like to bring a ethical issue to the pickleball players out there. And I think that the question is a historic one, and it's sort of haunted humanity for a long time, and it starts like this. Am I justified in disrupting one's well-being for my own happiness? If I truly believe that by enjoying my pleasure, I am at the same time harming another's well-being, would I continue in my action? This is not just a simple question of the one and the many. That is, that the many have precedence over the one. This is a question of one's moral fiber. If I truly believe that I was harming someone in order to enjoy some temporary joy in my life, would I continue? Life is filled with inconvenient truths, some of which we might ignore, some of which we willfully choose to ignore, and some that we irrationally reason away. Every time I enter the courts, I ought to be mindful that, in fact, harm is being done to residents. I can justify my behavior by saying, well, they bought a house near a park, or just because they're whining, why should I be penalized? But if I truly believed that I was causing harm to another for my own enjoyment, should I continue? It's said that, correct a person of wisdom and they will thank you for it. My hope is that wisdom will prevail. There's no doubt that the dispute today, one group would like to have the courts gone, the other group would like to have the courts accessible at all regular park hours. When a dispute of such opposition, seemingly with no compromise in sight, we usually turn to a higher power. Such a power ought to govern the situation in such a manner that both sides win and lose with equal measure. That's called compromise. We turn to our governing body at Lake Oswego and ask for some kind of compromise. But we do stand united in one thing, all of us, and that is that we need more dedicated courts in Lake Oswego. If you agree with that, say yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Forgot to say too, when you just said, you just say your name, and you can say your address if you want to, but you don't have to say your address. I just want to tell everyone that in advance. Okay, Kara.
Hi, yes, it's Kara Gapone.
Kara.
Yeah, and I am actually reading on behalf of Sandy Introversado, who cannot be here today. She is attending a her grandfather's 100th birthday, so I volunteered to read on her behalf as a Parks Board member. So these are Sandy's words. I served 3 terms on the Parks Board and have been co-chair. I participated in a lot of recommendations to council, but my motion to stop pickleball play until we develop a sustainable, non-intrusive strategy feels the most meaningful and consequential. I'm not a pickleball player. When I rejoined the board in 2019, I learned how popular pickleball had become. I thought, yay. In March, the Parks Board was alerted to complaints from the GRP neighbors, and the council directive to explore and advise. At our work session, pickleball folks came and talked about the benefits. Several said things that struck me as insensitive. If the neighbors don't like the noise, they shouldn't live by a park. Then we heard from the neighbors. They spoke of the ping, whack, smack, yay noise from sunrise to sunset. A stroke patient who jerked with each ball hit. The inability to work or enjoy a cup of coffee or glass of wine outside their homes. Summer in Oregon, which we all treasure, wasn't the same in a home they occupied for years. They were frustrated that the Parks Department hadn't sought their input nor seemed to care. The following Saturday, I took Phil and Yomiko Sterling up on their request to come over and experience things firsthand. I went home and felt blessed for the peace and quiet that I take for granted. I hoped that the fencing would solve the problem and urged the neighbors to wait for the sound study report. The sound findings were complex, but it was clear that when the paddles hit the ball, the impact noise is only slightly under what the government knows damages physical health. What was most compelling by the admission was the consultant was that she would not choose to live at a home surrounded by GRP.
Cara, I'm so sorry. She
Yeah.
gave you more words than 2 minutes.
I asked her to
But we
edit it
did,
too.
she did send the comments in
Yes.
advance. We all had a chance to read them, and we
Good.
appreciate you being here, Cara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Ali Afghan. Ali, are you here? Oh, on Zoom.
On Zoom.
Okay, he is on Zoom. And then Valentina, are you here? Okay, good. You can come up. You'll be next. Mr. Afghan, good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Ali Afghan. I represent the Old Town Neighborhood Association tonight. Let me be clear, Old Town Neighborhood Association is for pickleball and urges you, the city, to create opportunities for playing pickleballs in Lake Oswego. Having said that, Old Town Neighborhood Association stands against any action that hurts people, physically or mentally, period. The pickleball noise has deteriorated the mental health of many Lake Oswego residents. We stand against that. The negative consequences of pickleball are well known, not only from our own experience in Old Town, but also from other cities and countries. 56 Old Town neighbors have signed a petition urging you to accept the PRAP's recommendation to close the pickleball courts and develop a pickleball policy for the city of Lake Oswego. The decision to put pickleball courts at George Rogers Park was made without going through the city's own assessment process. If you don't follow the PRAP's recommendation, Lake Oswego will have yet another negative reputation that the city of Lake Oswego does not follow its own process at many levels of the city, including the city council. City councilors, you now know the negative impacts of pickleball courts to many Lake Oswego residents and are obligated to put a stop to it. Put mental health front and center. Old Town Neighborhood Association urges you to put a stop to knowingly hurting people and do the right thing for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Afghan. We appreciate you being here. Miss Sobolou, is that
Hi.
right?
Yes.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving us the time.
Maybe just put that microphone a little closer there. There you go, good.
My name is Valentina. My husband is Paul. I have 6 children, Thaisa, Dan, Tim, Irina, Lilia, their fiancés, a lot of elderly, retired friends in the community that come to our home and saw what was going on. From 2015 to 2019, my husband endured with me this aggravating, painful pinging from the pickle courts, and there's 16 balls being hit. Every time they hit them, what happens is like the pinging goes through your body, not just through your house and through your yard. Since I live right at 143 Ladd, like kitty corner across from the pickle courts. And it causes jumping, twitching, pulling, electricity runs through the body everywhere, acute distress. Paul suffered a massive stroke. I was his 24-hour caregiver. Ivan, the Parks Department, nobody said a thing to us. We've lived there for 35 years. We pay the taxes, we use the tennis courts, our children, their friends in Lake Oswego. And suddenly, there was no tennis court. No warning, nothing. And periodically, people used it. But now, with the pickleball situation, we found out that more and more people are from outside of Lake Oswego. They're not even Lake Oswegans playing there. They were playing from 6 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. at night, and the pinging would go on. After we, of course, addressed it as a neighborhood, they shortened the hours, and you have the notes on all that. But my biggest concern is that the pain that is just super aggravated.
Thank you.
So I go to more therapy, and my husband ended up, because he couldn't speak, he would just go like that every time a ping would happen from those tennis courts.
Thank you. We hear you. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
we want them removed.
Thank you.
So we could have quiet, and also because of the traffic there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We hear you. Thank you very much. Okay, Philip Sterling and John Gustafson, please come on down. Oh, he's not here. Okay. Then, please, Mr. Sterling, and Bruce Globo, please, welcome. All right. Good evening to you both, please, Mr. Sterling.
Good evening. My name is Philip Sterling. I live on 119 Ladd Street. I lived there for 22 years already. I want to say that by the continuing noise and nuisance has been extremely stressful for myself, my family, and many neighbors. Yes, we chose to live next to a park. We enjoy park noises, but this is unlike anything we've experienced in 22 years. The location of the pickleball courts so close to my home violates my rights to live, work, and find solace in my home. I know the frustration of pickleball players. They have stated that they have a taxpayer right to use a public park, but I also have a homeowner's right to enjoy my house peacefully. Because the city put pickleball courts in the wrong location, people are divided into two opposing groups. Please consider the following. I have experienced no reduction in sound after the barriers are installed. This is true. The study validates this if you read it carefully. The study states that pickleball noise is about 3 times louder than the background noise. Even the sound expert that wrote the study, ABD, stated that she would not live next to the courts. The situation has created controversy, anguish, stress, mental harm, not only to residents, but all of the players as well. Dragging out this nuisance will intensify the current issues. We've been very patient for 4 years. While studies have been done, pickleball play continues, but we have yet to have any relief from this problem. Pickleball players can play at many locations throughout the city, but I can't move my house. If the noise is acceptable, if you agree with this ABD engineering study that it's acceptable, wouldn't this set a precedence where it's allowable at any resident in Lake Oswego? That's an important question. These decibel levels are up to 95 decibels. Can you imagine? Last comment. City Council members, you've tasked the Parks and Recreation Board with studying the issue and making a recommendation. Please take the recommendation, I urge you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Mr. Globo.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Globo, and I live at 71 Ladd Street with my wife, Colleen. We've enjoyed living next to the park for 32 years. Prior to the pickleball courts, we have had no issues, no concerns with activities in the park and the normal level of noise. We enjoy the sound of baseball, tennis, soccer, kids playing. That has changed. The sound of pickleball is incredibly irritating and disturbing, and it requires us for the first time to voice concerns over any issue to the City of Lake Oswego. We believe the placement of the pickleball courts at George Rogers Park was an arbitrary and capricious act. It was done without the proper planning and outreach to the Old Town neighborhood and community. The incessant sound from pickleball violates the sanctity and solace of our home and property. The noise is highly disturbing and a nuisance. It violates the discretionary metrics of the city's noise ordinance. It negatively affects our mental and emotional health. Your job as elected officials is to watch out for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Lake Oswego. To play pickleball at George Rogers Park is a privilege offered by the city. It is not a guaranteed right. Pickleball players can come, play pickleball, defy any reasonable level of noise, and then leave to the solace of their own homes, many times in other cities. The citizens of Old Town do not have that luxury. However, we do have rights as homeowners and citizens of Lake Oswego, rights we believe the city is violating by their own actions. There's no compromise on this issue. There's no win-win when people's health is at stake. We strongly request the City Council to close the pickleball courts at George Rogers Park and do the right thing. Follow the proper planning process. All the citizens of Lake Oswego. And locate the courts in an appropriate spot. Do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBeau. Dareth Lampka, and come on down, and Yumiko Sterling, please. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. We're neighbors. I'm Dareth Lampka. I've lived in Lake Oswego for 15 years. I think I have a unique perspective on this pickleball issue. I am a pickleball player. It is a very fun game, especially going whack and yay! And that's why we love it. I live 2 blocks now from George Rogers, from the pickleball courts. And personally to me, I don't hear the noise. It's tolerable. I hear it, but it's tolerable. My neighbors, it's unbearable. And I think that's why we're here tonight. It's like jackhammers, they describe it as. They say it's like pounding nails in a roof, but it goes on every day, dawn to dusk, whenever the weather is nice, and they can't escape it. It's causing them emotional and physical pain. They're crying, and it's not right. These are our neighbors and friends. Yes, we want to play pickleball. We can play pickleball somewhere else. I am also on the Neighborhood Association Board, and we as a neighborhood association said we're going to come together and support our neighbors to ask the city to shut down the courts. I also have served for the past year as an alternate on the Parks Board, and I have listened to all the discussions, read all the reports, and we ask you to accept the recommendation and close the pickleball courts. I couldn't vote because I was an alternate. I would have voted for this. So we ask you to do the right thing for the neighbors, and as others have said, we need more pickleball. This isn't either or.
Thank you, Ms. Lampka. Sterling?
Yes.
Good evening.
Hello. Thank you for your time. My name is Yumiko Sterling. I've lived on Ladd Street for 22 years and never made any kind of complaint about park noise. I'm here today because pickleball noise is not a regular park noise. It's loud and disturbing. I'm depressed, sad, and frustrated because I need to live with this noise every day. I try to accept this noise, but when people started playing at 6 a.m., I lost my patience. I woke up as soon as someone hit the first ball, even when the windows in my house were closed. I lost hours of sleep. Then COVID-19 came. I stayed at home a lot until March this year, which made me hear more pickleball noise. My stress has been built up over the years. I have pressure in the head, nightmares, and cry a lot because this noise is too much to take. I have a homeowner's right to enjoy every inch of my property. Pickleball noise has invaded my space. I'm mentally and physically exhausted by both pickleball noise and this whole process I've gone through the last 4 months. I know the park department gave us quiet time, but people come anyway. We have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 to 6, Sunday, 1 to 8 a.m. 1 to 8 p.m. for quiet time. But people come here, play anyway. My husband, I went to the courts 30 times to tell people to look at the sign. Please pass this motion, please. Please do right stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sterling. Thank you both. And the last call is Colleen Gabo. Yeah.
Whew, hope I can do this now. Sorry, Miko. Hi, I'm Colleen Glabo. Thank you for your time. I live at 71 Ladd Street with my husband, Bruce. We've raised 2 kids for 33 years, never complained. And 4 years ago, suddenly everything changed. When the courts were converted to pickleball, the awful, overwhelming, constant sound began. I'm asking you, the city of Lake Oswego, to do the right thing and find a new home for pickleball so they can have their fun. I enjoy the game myself. I don't play there, but I do enjoy it. We want to bear to continue to live in our home. This is our life. We live here with the same rights as everybody in this room. We didn't have any say in this matter. I can tell you personally, I tried to find the person to speak to, could never make that happen. And then it was a done deal. It's a torturous sound of that plastic ball hitting a wooden or a fiberglass paddle. It's horrible. We ask for liberty and justice for all. Old Town residents are tax-paying residents of the community. Please hear us and do the right thing. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate your work.
Thank you, Ms. Glabo.
Thank you.
Now, I know that there's others of you here that maybe didn't speak but agree with those who did just speak. So if you would all like to raise your hand, those of you in agreement with all these folks who just spoke, so we can recognize you as well. Okay, thank you. Okay. Now we have next Kathleen Thomas. And are you here, Kathleen? Yeah, please come on down. Jacob Stewart. Jacob, coming down. And then next will be Jan Marr and Bill Brager. Okay. Yeah, please.
Good evening and thank you. I'm Kathleen Thomas and I'm a resident of Lake Oswego. I'm fortunate in that my house is about a 10-minute walk to the pickleball courts. Pickleball is an easy-to-learn sport, and one doesn't have to be a natural athlete, born athlete, to play it. Also, it doesn't cost a lot to play. This is why many seniors take up the sport. It is a good aerobic workout without as much stress or strain on the joints. It improves reflexes and balance. These health benefits are very important to seniors. According to AARP, studies have shown that pickleball reduces the risk of depression. There is a social element of the sport, and players enjoy meeting new people. Pickleball provides a safe environment to socialize for those of us who've lost their spouse or partner and want to stay in their own home. One of your 2022 council initiatives state, engage city departments, businesses, LOSD, the faith community, and nonprofits to create a coordinated effort at improving and maintaining healthy lifestyles. Playing pickleball is part of improving and maintaining a healthy lifestyle for our seniors. So I ask you to support keeping the pickleball courts at George Rogers Park open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Mr. Stewart.
My name is Jacob Stewart. I'm here to speak for the underrepresented taxpayers, the families, the working professionals, the young adults, basically those who you're not seeing today because they're still at work or commuting or home eating dinner with their families, running kids around, doing whatever it takes to enjoy this wonderful Lake Oswego lifestyle. You may think that pickleball is strictly a game for older people, but no, as the fastest growing sport, the majority of the growth now comes from those under the age of 40. My wife and I live across from George Rogers Park on State Street, and yeah, we hear noise from traffic, we see the field lights on in the evening, we encounter the special events congestion, but we chose to move there to that location because of the beauty, the proximity to green spaces, and easy access to all downtown Lake Oswego offers. Shockingly pleasant surprise was the discovery of pickleball. My wife and I watched, we saw the fun, and we're competitive people, so we joined in. What hooked us was the flexibility of pickleball as an informal sport. No fancy equipment's needed, it's not expensive, it doesn't require prior arrangements. We could just walk across the street and play. We've played with, quote, strangers who become fast friends, and current friends love to come visit us to play in Lake Oswego. Outside of walking our dog, I don't think there's another activity we enjoy more these days. We ask of you, as a working family beginning to spread our wings here in LO, implore you to keep the pickleball facilities open for everyone's use. It's important for working taxpayers to know that our dollars are being spent on things we enjoy. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you both. Okay, Jan Maher, did I say that right? Oh, yes, please come. Very small handwriting. Bill Breaker. Bill, are you here, please? Come on down. And then next will be Diana Ross and Elise Monroe. Okay.
Thank you. Some people give me jumbo crayons to write with. I do write small. In front of you, I gave a handout. I don't know if you all have that. It starts interesting numbers.
We have it.
I'm here to say everyone deserves an equal right and to be respected. And so when I went to the tax lot owners' numbers, we realized those first two numbers show less than 0.5% are in the Old Town District. Everyone needs to have the same right to enjoy this beautiful area. It's not pitting one person against another, it's trying to find a solution. We've already spent $70,000 of our taxpayers' money to try to ameliorate concerns that people have spoken to you about. I would like you to understand that from my reading of the study, the sounds of the pickleball, 6 at a time for the 6 courts, would be well within the Oregon DEQ requirements. We taxpayers also spent monies to do an acoustic wrap, and that did reduce some of the sound. We now have an electronic system to enter, and based on the Clackamas County Code 605060, organized activities from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. are allowed. I know that we're trying to find compromise. I know that we're trying to find times that will work for everyone. As we have implemented some pretty significant changes, 40% less time for the pickleball club to play, and for the residents, even less than that. The Sunday quiet time, for example, violates perhaps many people's freedom of religion in that it is closed from 1 to 8 in the afternoon. So those going to church in the morning or playing pickleball.
I'm so sorry, you're at your time.
I'm at my time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you,
You
Ms.
got the most of what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Mr. Breger.
I'm Bill Bregar. I've lived in the Westridge neighborhood for 35 years. I have to say that listening to some of this testimony, I kind of changed my pitch a little bit. I came here mainly to be a nerd. I wanted to just specify that there are some there's some equipment available that could actually mitigate some of the noise. There is a quiet pickleball, for example, that is reputed to reduce the noise level by about 10 decibels, which is about, reduces it to about half of its original noise factor. I spoke to the person that opened up this company today, and he's sending me a few balls for testing starting this, I should be getting them Friday or Saturday, and I thought I would give them to the pickleball club and see if they couldn't integrate them into the play and perhaps reduce some of that noise. There are also quiet pickleball rackets that can also reduce the noise between 5 and 10 decibels. So there may be some solutions to the noise on the horizon, but they may not be here yet. So frankly, I think that with the noise reduction blanket around the courts and quieter paddles and balls, there might be a solution that would satisfy people slightly more than what there is now. But I'm not so sure anymore. So I think I would like to just propose that if you do close the courts, maybe you could expedite the process of evaluating alternatives for play at the courts and see if we couldn't find a way to compromise with the residents and provide services to both. Okay. That's where I stand at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Bergar. Thank you. Diana Ross and Elise Monroe, please come on down. And then on deck is David Dunning and Tom Whidden. All right. Ms. Ross?
That is my name. Thank you for listening to us. So my name is Diana Ross, and I'm a resident of Forest Hills. I'm also on the board of the Lake Oswego Pickleball Club. At the Old Town neighborhood's request, the city hired an acoustical engineering firm to conduct a noise study. On June 15th, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board met to discuss the results of that study. At the meeting, ABD Engineering and Design reported that the noise from the pickleball courts did not exceed any of the recommended criteria. They also stated the pickleball courts were exempt from all noise ordinances specific for athletic activities. And since Lake Oswego Pickleball Club is a 503c7 social club with rules of conduct and club bylaws, and with a permit from the city to play on specific days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, for specific hours, 9 to 1, and we have those hours divided between skills. You must reserve your place to play so you don't overwhelm the courts. We have a city-mandated permit so that we can insure you for negligence on the courts during our time there. I'd have to say that we are a pretty well-organized athletic club. Regardless of the recommendations from the study, the neighborhood, after reading the noise study before the meeting, spoke up to combat the findings, which is their right, but it does not change the conclusion. Each side can throw around studies, and it makes no difference because neither of us is an expert. But I know somebody who is, ABD Engineering. Finally, I have to say this. As far as insensitivity goes, I listened to the meeting on June 15th a couple times, and I overheard one of the advisory board members saying, well, they can just go play someplace else. We're citizens too. There is no place else in Lake Oswego. We don't want to ruin anyone's life. We just want to play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. Ms. Monroe.
My name is Elise Monroe, and I'm part of a multi-generational pickleball family here in Lake Oswego. I'm here today to ask the City Council to keep the pickleball courts at George Rogers open and fully accessible during park hours. Currently, access is limited by reduced court hours, locked gates, and trespassing citations are being written by authorities. Other activities at George Rogers are not limited. It's always been an active and popular park. I'm not aware of any other city park that's locked in the middle of the day or that has hours other than dawn to dusk. This is due to neighbors' complaints and a campaign to close the only pickleball venue in Lake Oswego. You will hear some strong rhetoric, dawn to dusk play, jackhammer, that does not match up with their sound study, the current hours that have been set. There's real concern among taxpayers that closing or continuing to limit access will set a wide ranging precedent that any city park can be closed due to neighbor concerns, and that citizens may feel they have authority over adjacent lands. This decision opens the door for neighborhood associations or individuals to ask for special concessions for park usage in their area. Parks are for the betterment of all families, abilities, and interests for the whole community and all taxpayers. Please take a look at the process so far. There has been a lack of inclusion of all parties coming up to this. People that have not been at those advisory board meetings that didn't even know that they were happening. And let's keep the courts open, move on, and get some other locations. But don't nuclear bomb us out of there for the only season we've been scraping for, squeegeeing the courts for 20 minutes so that we play for an hour in all these rainy times so far. A lot of people love this sport, and give us a good alternative. I mentioned in an email, you're building a tennis pavilion, look out at that. You've got courts there. Take some of those courts, put them there, and let us have some pickleball courts there.
Thanks, Ms. Monroe.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Okay, David Dunning and Tom Whidden, come on down. And then on deck, Elise Lagasse and Nancy Kirk. Gentlemen.
Hi there. Tom will go first.
Okay.
Do I push a button when my 2 minutes starts here?
No, you just go ahead, start talking.
Ready, set, go. Hi, I'm Tom Whidden. I'm the Executive Director of the Northwest Pickleball Veterans. I'm a Lake Oswego resident. I also served on the Park and Rec Board for 3 years during the startup. And I actually started pickleball here in Lake Oswego at the 2 pickleball courts at my house. Well, it got to be about 30, 40 people showing up for potlucks 3 nights a week. So, you know, parking got tight. So we met with Ivan Anderholm, went down to the Rogers courts. We did a trail camera study. Nobody used that thing. In a 10-day period, a few people showed up and laced up their shoes but didn't play, mainly dog walkers, frisbee throwers. So it was an ideal location. So on Memorial or Labor Day in 2015, we painted the lines on and started the pickleball play. And, you know, it's really been a wonderful thing since then. Currently, I go between Southern California and the Canadian border converting tennis courts to pickleball courts. And we just did Ida Wells High School here. We're going to do a bunch of others for the Portland Parks and Rec. In every major community anywhere in Oregon, we have pickleball courts. There's almost 400 pickleball courts now in every city of any size. And here in Portland, we have 37 different locations. And not one single phony baloney noise complaint thing orchestrated by the U.S. Tennis Association, except here in Lake Oswego. So what's happened with the tennis center being closed, the tennis people are converting to pickleball, and it's a one-way street. There's nobody that goes back to tennis after they go to pickleball. So there is an excellent and free solution to this. And we've been brought up, and I gave the proposal, and then Park and Rec, they just kind of sick and tired of pickleball, but it's to move the pickleball equipment and the play to Westlake Park. There's a big stadium there. It'd be a perfect solution. Take the equipment there. And it's a much younger group of people, that far more tolerant, and there's lots of parking.
We hear you. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I got fresh 2 minutes. Bingo. I'm David Dunning. I've lived in Lake Oswego over 30 years. I played tennis here, and I played pickleball at George Rogers Park for the past 5 or 6 years. A couple of quick reasons why I think we should keep the pickleball courts. Successful usage. Hundreds of people play every week, and sometimes it's hundreds a day. There are many other outdoor tennis courts in Lake Oswego, but only one pickleball facility, George Rogers Park. That's it. Pickleball is perhaps the fastest growing sport in the nation, and Parks and Rec should continue to promote it. Article back here in December, it's already been referenced that pickleball courts at George Rogers Park are the second most active venue in the nation. And I'm there often, and it's very well used. Another reason is there are many active outdoor sports appropriate. There are few active outdoor sports appropriate for older folks. We don't play football, at least I don't. Don't do soccer, baseball, all of which are supported on the sports field next to the pickleball courts. Socialization and community building, and by the way, mental health. That's what got me through COVID, frankly, pickleball. You meet people here in Lake Oswego you would never meet otherwise, and I now have dozens of pickleball buddies. Now, in the last half minute, the whole issue of noise. Noise is not exclusive to the pickleball courts at George Rogers Park. It is somewhat noisy. You have community associations like Sun City in Arizona that have made a list of pickleball paddles that are permitted and ones that are not allowed. Then you have the quieter balls that have already been referenced. Apparently, I was on the website for pickleball outfits and materials, and Penn, the tennis, the folks that make tennis balls, makes a quiet pickleball. And so these are possible, quick and easy and much cheaper solutions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Elise? Oh, please. And Nancy? Come on up. Good evening to you both.
Good to go. Fastest 2 minutes of my life.
There you go.
Good evening. I am here actually now for pickleball as opposed to George Rogers Park. Very interestingly, my request in the vein of Mark Woolman's testimony is that we find a win-win. The request is we keep the parks open until a suitable alternative is available. My husband behind me, Gene Rosewater, or as USAA likes to call him, Captain Dr. Rosewater. Gene is intelligent, creative, and athletic. We moved to Lake Oswego not because of a job and not because of the stellar school system, but we were looking to live among an active community. What constitutes an active community? A population that participates in town functions, city politics, and a community that offers recreational opportunities to all. A primary caveat when we chose our home was that it had to be within walking distance of a pickleball court. Why? Because Gene had just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And if that disease has not affected you, you are very blessed. Alzheimer's redefined Dr. Rosewater from an intelligent, creative athlete into a patient. Gene lives for his hours on the pickleball court. Most importantly, his neurologist agrees that being outside and playing pickleball is what keeps him active and alive. But it's not just about the sport. The players in Lake Oswego provide an amazingly supportive community. His disease prohibits him from keeping score. His co-players take care of him. They watch out for him and they treat him with respect. Sports are an integral part of our Oswego community. Soccer, Little League, recreation on the river, and yes, welcome to the 2000s, pickleball. It's a newer sport, and often trends are hard to accept for non-participants. But pickleball must have a place in this thriving, vibrant community, which is attracting more retirees who contribute a substantial percentage to the financial makeup of our community. So please keep the courts open until we find a suitable replacement in the city.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, Ms. Kirk.
My name is Nancy Kirk. I'm a small part of a grassroots group formed when we became aware of the potential further closure of the pickleball courts. I think we can all agree that as a progressive community, we don't want to pit one neighbor against another. We pride ourselves in being an inclusive community. Our neighbor cities are fully embracing and encouraging pickleball as a community pastime. These cities are expanding their pickleball facilities, not reducing them. LO has only 6 courts, Westland 10, Tualatin 12, Tigard currently 4, adding 4, Wilsonville currently 6, adding 4. In 2019, we were called on to support Bond 3-548 for $30 million so that the Parks and Rec could develop and manage park facilities. And that's just what these professionals are doing. The concerns of the neighbors have been heard and recognized by Parks and Rec, and then substantial investments of over $70,000 have been made in order to mitigate these concerns. Our tax dollars were spent for us to use these facilities. The players recognize that the city may choose to locate pickleball courts in a more desirable location, and that when that is complete, players will go there. But the pickleball community stands firm in that we cannot take away the current facility until a comparable facility replaces it. To address both sides of the issue, we, the pickleball community, respectfully ask the council to instruct Parks and Rec to expedite the construction of a new pickleball facility complex that is capable of handling the needs of the LO community. At such time as those facilities are available, the currently existing courts at George Rogers need to be open until that is complete. Thank you. I'd also like to present to the council our petition, pretty hurried, of over 200 petitioners that agree with what I just said.
Okay, you get it to Ms. Linder there, and thank you, Ms. Cook. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I know that not everyone, again, got to speak, but for the folks who are here that agree with the comments, the folks who are, on the opposed, please raise your hand to show your support. Okay, thank you. We appreciate you all being here, and to everyone here, thank you for your good comments and the respectful way in which you'd delivered them. Okay. Okay, so to my colleagues here, we kind of have two questions before us. The one is, do we direct the staff to pursue a different location for the city operated pickleball courts? And then the second, do we continue the current play at George Rogers Park? And if so, do we continue it under the current newly restricted hours or different hours? Or in the alternate, do we discontinue play at the park altogether? It seems that the one thing everyone here agrees on is that there should be a better location for the park. So to knock one of our two charges out of the way, is everyone in agreement that we should direct the staff to find a different location for pickleball? Everyone, okay. So, okay, good, okay. So now the bit more difficult question, of course, is around the current play at George Rogers. And I don't know if Director Anderholm could come back up. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's right in the middle. Could, we heard lots of comments from folks about some of the, about the sound barrier, some of the mitigation, but some other, and just to kind of walk us through which of these mitigating actions are kind of currently taking place, which ones have yet to be implemented. So I heard locks on the doors. Are there locks there? Are they going to be there? The paddles and the balls. You talked about the paddles and the balls, and any other kind of mitigating factors that maybe have not yet been implemented.
I'm just writing down notes, sorry. So on the locks, right now we're manually locking the courts due to the change. We changed the hours of access to 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. So currently we're manually doing that, but we are in the process and have ordered basically programmable locks that will be able to do that automatically, and then we'll be able to change that should we need to change it. So that is in process. Mm-hmm. But those are being manually locked.
They are locking them.
And unlocked, yes.
Okay.
Paddles and balls, we've done some exploring into paddles and balls, and we are aware of what are quote-unquote green zone paddles, which essentially is a listing of certified paddles that do reduce noise. Primary technology in that is that the hollow core of the paddle is filled. They perform normally, so we are aware of that. In regard to the balls, there are some emerging technologies that are balls that are more like paddle or more like pickleballs. To my understanding, and I may be wrong on this, but my understanding is that for USA Pickleball, they have not adopted an alternative ball as an official ball. And I don't want to lead you here, but it is, you can play tennis with something other than a tennis ball. And it's akin to that at this point, is my understanding. We have had a conversation in our permitting process with the LO Pickleball Club about recommending to use green paddles or paddles that make less noise. And we are also working towards employing that in all of the programs that we provide, the pickleball programs that we provide through the department.
Okay, but currently we're not mandating the green paddles.
We're not mandating the green paddles at this point.
At this point, okay,
Yeah.
so that hasn't yet been done. Well, I think, without a doubt, and we had a chance too well, some of us, Councilor Verdick and I went down, and I've been down several times to sit and listen to the pickleball, and that was very, very helpful. As we all know, the homes, down there on Ladd are very close, to the park, and there's no buffer. And pickleball grew, as we also know, very quickly, and was a deep contrast to the really underutilized tennis courts that were there before. And then, of course, this occurrence in the context of the pandemic, people looking to get outside, which proved healthy, for the wider community, but was a steep change for the neighbors in Old Town, as folks came for a variety of reasons. I remember back to the meeting we had before when this started. It was folks, in addition to pickleball, coming to the river, walking, other park users, just very, very crowded, and we can certainly understand that was different from how things had been. And now we're in kind of a slightly different time in terms of the usage, which is heartening to see that the use is coming down, partly due to the weather, partly due to the reduced hours allowed at the courts, but the noise still remains, and it's clearly an issue. I mean, we have this nationwide issue in every town. The noise is just a different, it's a different sound than other athletic uses. So it's kind of the benefits of pickleball that we hear from the players, and that it's accessible. And when Councilor Verdick and I were down there, there was a whole, it was to young kids to senior citizens and everything in between playing, which is great, but that is kind of what's also causing the problem, is that it's so accessible. It's like we could have we could have 4 basketball courts down there, and those would also be very noisy, but we would never have that same array of people playing it so often, because it's just not as accessible of an activity. So I do think that there's a range of benefits to the community shouldn't be overlooked, especially right now. We're focused as a city on providing these kind of wide-ranging physical and mental health care, recognizing these opportunities for recreation, the intersection of those two. As we emerge from the pandemic, that's been a part of our goal setting here this year, providing opportunities for social interactions and physical fitness. So I know these activities are a lifeline for some of the residents. And so here we are, left with these 2 critical needs, which you all have done such a good job articulating. We have the needs of the neighbors to be not exposed to the disruption at a level we would deem unreasonable given the location, and the need of the users that I've just stated. So in my mind, the solution is a balancing of the 2 in the near term while we seek out that long-term solution that we all agree is needed. I'm wondering if there's a time, if you had, it's like 3 months to put together. Folks have come to us here. I've heard Hazelia, I've heard Westlake, I've heard Lusher, I've heard trading inside courts at the tennis center for outdoor courts. We've heard a host of things thrown out. If you had a few months, would you be able, Director, to come back with recommendations on a kind of a long-term plan?
I think that we would be able to examine long-term solutions and be able to come back with some options for council and a possible recommendation. As I've stated, there are not a lot of pieces of property within our park system that could accommodate this, so we would be taking a look at some of those that were mentioned this evening and basically looking at the feasibility. And when we did come back to council, it would be fairly comprehensive on timeline. And again, I can't forget to tell you the cost of doing this. There will be a financial cost for doing that, as well as an approval timeline through a land use process for pretty much any of the suggested areas that we might do it.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Councilor Mance.
So what I'm hearing is that you could do this within 3 months, that there will be resources necessary in order to implement this, whether it's having someone going out and examining sites and going through the land use process or whatever that may be. I don't know if that would look like.
So I'm reluctant
May
to
I
have you
finish?
guys, I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me. May I please finish, City Manager? Thank you.
I apologize.
Thank you. I think what I want to be clear on with my colleagues as well as staff is that this has become an overwhelming thing, both for the council as well as for the citizens. I mean, I'm not going to negate the number of hours that we have all, whether citizenry, other volunteers and other boards have put into this. So it is paramount that we find a solution, and a solution that would be a midterm solution. Obviously, a long-term solution would be to look at Lusher Farm. If that comes in, it might be something in another part of town for all we know. We don't have an idea until we go through that process, correct? Is that correct?
that is correct.
So for me, one of the most important things at this moment, and I'm almost done, City Manager, is that we make sure that we have guaranteed resources and people to see this through, knowing that Director Anderholm's plate is full. Not that that's an excuse, but we do have a pool, a golf course, and various other and sundry things. So if we can have that happen, that would be great. And I'm sorry, please.
No, Councilor, I'm so sorry. I guess if you're interested in finding, sorry, am I ringing? Another location, what I would suggest, as opposed to you guys on the dais committing to 3 months and having the neighbors and the pickleball players hear you say that, why don't Ivan and I bring you back a proposed work plan at your next meeting so we can give you an idea of what we think a realistic timeline would be, understanding that sooner is better than later. So, and I appreciate those comments you made, Counselor, about making sure there's adequate resources. I'm concerned that we make sure there's adequate resources in terms of being able to project manage this at the Parks Department. So I appreciate that acknowledgement very much. I understand the desire to move quickly, but I also want to give you a timeline. I want to meet the expectations that we create. So I hate to just pick a number until we scope the project.
That was a suggestion. That was a suggestion, City Manager,
can
to
appreciate
show
that,
the urgency of this.
But we just want to stress we want to provide a light at the end of the tunnel, and Councilor Wynn.
No, I think City Manager already addressed some things I wanted to talk about, but I just had a question for Director Anderholm. So you'd mentioned that some of the other potential sites had potential land use change. I understand that Lusher Farm, for example, but what about other existing park facilities, say that it's a tennis court? Would that require a land use change to change these from a tennis court to a pickleball court?
I would have to check again with planning on that. We did check with planning prior to putting in pickleball, converting the tennis courts at pickleball, and we were able to make the argument that the existing tennis courts were not being utilized, and at the time we didn't expect the usage to be as exponential as it was. So there was no land use on that. I would say based on what we've seen in the community and based on what we've seen at George Rogers, and I don't want to speak for planning, but I would have to ask that question, as if we were going to change the use of, say, Westlake tennis courts to pickleball, what that would be.
Well, I'd also like to echo what Councilor Mance had said about a timeline. I know that we're not going to pick a specific time, but I think that we are a city of high performers, and I think that we need to set at least, if not a hard timeline, but an aspirational timeline. I think that our community expects that of us, and I'd also like to just to make sure that as we consider a different site, that we also make sure that if we learn anything from last time, let's get some input from the actual pickleball users, and also make sure that we also include the neighbors, so we don't run into a situation like this where we have an overwhelming level of support and then find ourselves in a similar situation. So if we learn anything from this exercise, let's try to avoid that at all costs.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Wynn. Councilor Windland.
Well, I know harmony is absolutely important in this town. We need to all live with each other. We know that solutions take time and solutions take money, but I think we do have things lining up that we can put some of that together. I do sit on the Lake Oswego Parks and Rec board as a liaison as the city council, so I've gone to the meetings, and I just want to commend everyone who has testified. Your heart and soul is you try to sum it up in 2 minutes, and I know that's hard. And I did tell a number of people that you have to kind of trust the process that we go through. And in Lake Oswego, it takes time in government work to get everything solved, but we usually come up with good solutions. And I'm in full support of looking at some alternatives. I guess one question I have, well, the other part too is I don't know if all the mitigation steps have been fully utilized. I know that we just put the sound barriers are up. I don't know, there's some questions of whether we could put additional sound barriers on the north wall or extend the north wall or put because I know pickleball players never have a ball that goes vertical up and down. Maybe we could put something, the kind of the cantilevered panels or something up near the north end. As you said, the equipment changes. We're just getting the lock installed. I know that was put in place. I'd love to see some of those mitigation measures more fully developed. I guess I look at it too as that there have been some compromises made in the scheduling and what we're trying to do to mitigate the noise. I also know that summer will be short. Summer hasn't started. We had a good July 4th, and it's usually supposed to be sunny on the 5th, and it rained. So I do know that we have July and August and September, and then the days get shorter from now on. So there'll be less time at the courts. Is that correct, moving forward? I mean, pretty soon it will be dark. We don't have the courts lit. Is that correct?
The courts are not lit, and the hours of operation are now limited 9 a.m. till 8 p.m., and then there are some times that are blocked off where we don't allow play.
Okay. I wouldn't be opposed if there is continuation of improvement. If we have reached a point to where we can't improve it, then maybe we talk about mitigation on hours or something like that. I guess with I don't know if this is political suicide or not, but the tennis courts at the tennis center are for tennis, but is it a zero chance of converting those for the betterment of all citizens in Lake Oswego? Or do you think the tennis community will be bigger than the pickleball community?
The next week, John.
Yeah, right. And this stays in this room. No, just kidding. Is it a possibility, or is it absolutely just a non-negotiable point?
I'm not going to say anything's non-negotiable. However, there are a number of things that we would have to look at. Right now, the tennis center, and has since the mid-1970s, operated as a self-supported enterprise fund. But I believe, going back to Manager Bennett's comments, I'd like to take some time to sit down with her and work on what a work plan would look like. And obviously within that work plan, we would also look at alternatives for extending mitigation at George Rogers, but then also looking at alternatives such as the indoor tennis center.
Okay.
And you've looked at the location at George Rogers of I know we have to invest in the picnic area down below. That's just almost too close to anything as well. If we flipped the picnic area with the courts, and the courts to the picnic area, is that going to gain us, or is that just a thicker Band-Aid?
Again, I think that that's something that we would look at and we would put into the work plan and come back to council with what that was. But obviously, part of the work plan will be looking at all various alternatives that we've heard and really examining them to what their feasibility is, and then also informing the council of what the pros and cons of each of the alternatives would be.
Okay. I do think for those who are putting up with the noise, I'm asking just for a little bit more patience until we get more feedback, and that's kind of where I stand as well. But I do emphasize the fact that we will act as a city to help solve this. And then we also have to look at the bigger park plan, because it sounds like pickleball is continuing to grow, and
which is great.
We do need to make sure that we do it right.
And I think in the meantime, we really should be doing everything that we can to mitigate, even if it's not ideal to players, the balls, the paddles. I mean, it should be, it should be everything. No.
Yeah.
Councilor Reddick?
I would like to thank my fellow councilors and everyone who has come here today to participate in this process and share their concerns. This is an incredibly difficult topic because there's no right or wrong. Mental health is an issue for both sides, and our well-being is an issue for both sides. And I think we're gonna walk away and we're not gonna have a perfect solution for everybody, unfortunately, tonight. I think what you do have from us is a commitment that we hear the importance of pickleball. I think we all embrace the fact that it's a great activity for all age levels. It's family, it's getting people moving, and that is a critical part of our community. But mental health is also an important part of our community. So we have a difficult balance. I'm pleased to hear that unfortunately, we need to have locks on the doors, but on the door to the courts. But I think for those people living in the neighborhoods, giving them that quiet time in the morning, I think that's something that's, again, we're about compromise. We are a large family, we are a large community, and at that time, we have to compromise, and we need to come and do some give and takes. And so I think what we're trying to do as a council is say, how can we come together as a community, show compassion towards one another, develop some compromise as we have a solid solution, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I have the utmost faith in our staff to come up with some very good solutions. And I want to thank you, Ivan, and your whole staff, because you have a lot on your plate, but I also know that you're dedicated to help us find a solution that will be good for the short and long term. And it may turn out to be even better for the pickleball players and better for the neighborhood. So with that said, I've looked at this schedule. I appreciate the fact that we've put in there some kind of times that will be set aside to be quiet for the neighborhood. And I'm not sure if this is realistic or not, and I honestly am not sure where my fellow councilors stand on it, but I I don't know if there's somewhere in here that we can find a compromise of a day where our neighbors can maybe at least have a day of a break, to have a full day of just knowing that they can have relatively quiet. I don't know that that's possible, but I just want to throw that out there to at least give them something, because we don't know how long this process is going to take before we have an ultimate kind of solution where we have pickleball and maybe, you know, courts and so forth in a better location for our entire community. Again, I'm not sure that that's possible. I think we've have reduced the hours, and I think that's a really good start. I think anything we can do with quieter balls, quieter rackets, you know, for those of you who are able to go and purchase those quieter rackets, I urge you, please do so. That's a nice thing to do for your neighbors. You know, if we can find those quieter balls, again, I urge you to do that. But again, I think it's about compromise tonight and understanding, and so I'm hoping we can, you know, do that moving forward. And again, just urgency, sorry, but urgency on finding that solution is imperative.
Thank you, Councilor Burdick. Councilor Williams,
I just wanted to add one more comment. I reached out to the county commissioners last week to try to get some sort of an answer where they are in the process, to nudge them along to try to get, if Lesher Farms can be expedited at all. And they did respond positively to say, yes, we're looking at it, it's on the schedule and so on. But I am but one person, and I would say that your energy in the pause that we're doing this, it's election season, folks, and there's a bunch of commissioners that are up for re-election, and they would do nothing more than like to please you. So I would suggest all of you working together, both sides, to the city or to the county commissioners and say, hey, we're really working on solutions in Lake Oswego. We want solutions. We need your help to expedite and to move this process along.
And to pay for them.
And to pay for them. That they may not. But I would suggest, I don't have all their emails right in front of me, but it's, if you go on the Clackamas County website, it's like CC Commissioners, I think, Clackamas County Commissioners. There's a one email. You don't have to email all 5 of them. Just do one email. Get them on our side moving forward, and at least that will provide maybe some options. It won't happen tomorrow, but it'll at least get things going. So united together, we can solve some problems. So hopefully so. Anyway.
So why don't we take a little break here and have Mr. Lewis help us kind of put a little motion together, and then we can come back and vote on. Does that sound good to everyone? Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're going to take, we'll take about a 5-minute recess. So. Okay, folks, I don't think my mic is on. Is my mic on? Folks, could you please take a seat? Folks.
Order, please, order.
No, they're doing it. Folks. You can sit down or go out in the hall.
So stupid.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to make a motion here that we direct staff to come back with a plan to identify alternate pickleball locations and to continue exploring sound mitigation, continue with restricted hours, and encourage use of sound dampening equipment. No, that is the motion.
Can I make a motion?
No, I made the motion.
Oh, you made the motion. I second the motion.
Oh.
I'm still learning the process, so.
The motion has been made.
Okay, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Councilor, any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Director Anderholm, thank you very much. Good job. Okay. Well, okay. No, well, we're in the middle of the meeting.
We're still in a meeting.
We're in the middle of the meeting.
We're in the middle of a meeting, I'm sorry.
We're in the middle.
This is
Okay. Thank you.
not
Thank you.
correct.
I said that.
Not
Okay.
correct. Go back to your seats.
Okay. I just want to keep moving here.
I know.
Keep going, just go.
Well,
Hey, can we take the conversations outside,
folks,
please?
hey, folks, we're still in the middle of a meeting, so you're welcome to stay or you need to leave, okay? And you need to do so quietly, please.
Oh my God, they're like teenagers.
It takes them a while to leave, you know.
It's a social club.
I think this is me.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is item 8.1, which is the quarterly council goals update from City Manager Bennett.
You know, as usual, I get to this point in the meeting and I'm like, you've heard enough talking. So unless you have questions, I think you've actually made quite a lot of progress in the last quarter on your goals. The ones that stood out for me, I bulleted, I guess the community dialogue and policing implementation was pretty outstanding. The other thing I think you guys really nailed was your work on House Bill 2001, implement all your affordable housing suite of work, and the work that you did to give direction on the pedestrian safety improvement funding package. You've got a lot coming on your plate next quarter. I know it's July and we take an August recess, but fall quarter is going to be really meaty. Including a decision on the economic development strategy, decision-making on the wastewater treatment plant, making sure we know what's going on with North Anchor, and then beginning the process on facility needs at the library. So unless you have questions, I think the report stands for itself. I do appreciate the fact that you guys set goals and then you actually follow them. That's really an awesome thing. So thank you.
Well done, team.
Yeah. Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you, Martha.
Questions? Okay, good job to us and the team. All right. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have on the consent agenda Resolution 22-14, which is a resolution of the City Councilors of the City of Lake Oswego approving appointments to all of our various boards and commissions. Just want to thank everyone who applied. First of all, we had a large number of community members apply to serve. We really appreciate that. I want to give thanks to Ms. Linder and Ms. Bruss in the mailroom for helping to do all of the coordination with the interviews. That is a lot of work. So would one of the councilors like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, motion passes 6-0. All right. And now information from council. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report on? Councilor Burke?
I just wanted to shout out because the concert on Sunday night was awesome. It was a lot of fun. So shout out to the band.
Good job, yes. Councilor Raff? Okay.
Sorry, John, but I do have to thank city staff, Martha, for an unbelievable parade. That was absolutely fantastic, and I don't know how or what you had to do to get the F-15 flyover right when we started, right up A Avenue. I mean, that was...
I'd love to take credit for it, but really, Ivan and his staff, Jamie Inglis, those are the folks who deserve the credit for this event. So
I've never seen anything like that. So yes, let's keep that part going, the flyover. Way to go, everybody.
Thank you, Councilor Raff. Councilor Wendland?
Well, I just want to second on the whole 4th of July. From everything that was done, I have to say what was really very encouraging for this town was, to get back into our groove. But I just wanted to shout out to the staff that everybody who had their red T-shirts on that said Lake Oswego were walking around with smiles on their face, totally engaged with everyone. It was just a very happy day. And most importantly, it went off without a hitch. And I would say that some cities were not as fortunate as we were. And it was just a great day. And I will say the vendors down at Millennium Park, when they had no idea what was coming, when all came loose, there was thousands of people that descended, and I haven't seen the park so crowded ever. And so anyway, it was just a great time to be in Lake Oswego. And I heard from many people that were visitors to Lake Oswego to say, you really do have magic that happens in this town. And I said, yep, we do. And it's not just 4th of July, it's many times. So anyway.
Councilor Wendland.
Thanks.
Councilor Mans?
I echo what my colleagues say. I do want to thank our police department for the traffic control, for that feeling of knowing that should anything happen, they had our backs on this, and it was a great feeling. I know that our citizens and the folks visiting us have all the best intentions, but knowing that you folks were there, Chief, really made a difference. So thank you, and please thank the force. Councilor Raff just asked, were you flying the jet overhead?
That's for retirement, right?
Thank you.
I do have an update from MPAC. Metro is going to be putting the parks levy renewal most likely on the November ballot. It would just be a renewal at the current levy rate. This is a levy that supports Metro's parks operations in a lot of the natural area parks they have throughout the region. They also regional trails. There's 27 park providers that are supported by the Metro's bond funds, and then the separate local option levy complements complements that capital, those capital projects in the bond. So that's coming up. That's important. I was surprised that Metro gets over 2.5 million people annually visit the Metro parks, which is so surprising data. And then also, Metro's working on the update to the regional transportation plan. Talking about, as part of that, we're talking about these emerging transportation trends. It's rather interesting because of the pandemic and change in work habits. So just some interesting numbers. Morning peak traffic is down 23%. The evening peak is down 12%. And the all-day traffic overall is down 13%. And so they're analyzing how these different traffic patterns can play in a positive way into these kind of diversifying travel patterns play into just how we use our corridors, the transit, and the impacts of these on climate change and congestion. They also did notice, actually, because traffic is so down, the speeds are actually up which is interesting. And that's not a good thing because it's obviously there's some dangerous traffic situations out there. And then Tigard, the city of Tigard has come in for a mid-cycle review on a whole mixed use, a mid-cycle review for expansion of the urban growth boundary for what they call the River Terrace 2.0, which is a rather a decent-sized expansion of Tigard. Many different housing types, from multifamily to the middle housing to single family, as well as retail uses, transit, all mixed together. They presented their concept plan on that at MPAC. It was pretty impressive. So that's what I have. Officers? Okay, well, very good. Well, thanks again, everyone. If there's nothing else, then we are adjourned. Good job.
Good morning.